now you're live. So hi everyone. Sorry about the hiccup. So hi Segun, how you doing?
Hi Patrick, I'm doing really well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show today.
It's a pleasure to have you too. So today we are have the pleasure to talk with Segun, who's going to talk to us about Chakra UI. So how long have you been working on Chakra UI, Segun?
Yeah, I think from today to be about 8 months or so that I've been working on Chakra UI.
Nice. And how's it been going so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting to be honest. I'll be honest to say it's my first open source project. Like I didn't like have so much experience with open source, so starting out was a little bit like challenging for me, and managing the growth of the project because I never expected it to grow as much as it is currently. And at least I'm really excited and happy. I mean that it's getting the traction that it's getting right now, and it's been quite interesting, fun, challenging as well. But I think overall, like I'm really enjoying the journey.
Nice, nice. And is it a lot of work to keep up with the issues and everything?
Yeah, yeah, actually, it's a lot of work. But I think what actually helps me right now is the fact that I try to manage my time, a little better. Initially, when I started, I mean, it literally sucks up all my time, including weekends, right? So I'm like always grinding over the weekend, trying to fix some issues, fix some bugs, improve it. And just like any open source project that starts getting traction, you start to see issues related to things like TypeScript. And like I didn't have so much experience with TypeScript beforehand, right? But I kind of try to consider those as well because I would like big corporate organizations to also try out Chakra UI.
A little
So that's
better.
the
Initially,
interesting
when I
and
started, I
challenging
mean,
part or journey I've been embarking on lately. And I think we're kind of almost done with that bit.
okay. Uh, so you want to share a screen and do a little demo of Chakra UI?
Yeah, sure. I'm excited to share. Okay, so Chakra UI's website, for those who are not aware, is chakraui.com. So you can visit the site, I mean, to read about and see what it's about. But basically, Chakra UI is a React component library that makes it really easy to build your website or your React applications, right? And one of the key reasons why I started Chakra UI was because I actually needed something like this. I was working on a product called Career Lift. It's sort of a resume builder. So while I was building that product, I realized it was quite challenging to take my designs and turn it into code because at the time, that's about 2 years ago, I didn't have so much like coding skills. Like I couldn't write React code. Like I was pretty much a UI designer before that time, for about 5 years or so. So so from my UI design experience, I tried to create a design for my product and I gave it to my friends to help me convert those designs to code. And just like every common engineering and design challenge, it's always a bit, the code is always a bit off from the design, and it's always a challenge trying to get the developers to sort of make it pixel perfect, so to say. So the reason I made Chakra UI was to solve this problem for my product first. I mean, I didn't plan to open source it, but right now I just made a decision to make it open source. Hopefully, it's going to help a lot of more people out there today. So right now we've been pretty excited because I have a number of people who contribute and help with this project. But then I'll just give you a walkthrough of what Chakra UI is about and the different components that we have, and literally the ideology or the ideas, the main ideas behind Chakra UI. Okay, so this is Chakra UI documentation. It's just pretty simple, and over here you can see a quick overview of the different components in Chakra UI and how we try to make it easy to create or write a component, right? So I'd like to say before moving ahead that Chakra UI is like heavily inspired by three common libraries or three popular libraries, which I definitely would like to give a shout out to now, which is one of which is Rich UI uh, by right, in Florence. That library is sort of an accessible library that provides lots of accessibility out of the box and sort of leaves the styling up to you. Right. So Chakra UI is heavily inspired by that. And then Style System as well. Style System is sort of like a styling API for React components that makes it really easy to style common CSS attributes by passing props to your components. Right. So just as you can see in this example, there's a text right here, right? These are not common React props, but because of the power of Style System, we're able to pass things like text transform, uppercase, font size small, font width bold. And the real idea or concept behind this is to make JSX a design tool and make it feel like more relatable and literally try to eliminate the need to write any CSS at all. So this is sort of like a CSS in JS pattern, and it's really aimed at making sure that you don't write any CSS code in your code base, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of things to know in CSS, and there's a lot of things to wrap your head around, right? So we try to really lower the bar for almost everyone, and I think it's been a good feedback so far that I've received, right? So I'll just delve into the code to explain the core ideas in Chakra UI. So here's the docs of Chakra UI, and one of the things I can immediately explain is really the concept of style props in Chakra UI. And this is literally one of the things that make Chakra UI stand out. We try to make it as reliable and as relatable and intuitive as possible. Right. And one other framework I forgot to mention is Tailwind CSS. Chakra UI is heavily inspired by Tailwind CSS, and most of the style props and the uh, developer experience gains we have in Chakra UI today is heavily inspired by Tailwind CSS. Right. So, for example, if you have a box and you would like to maybe give it a margin of a specific margin, maybe 20 pixels or 40 pixels, you just import box from Chakra UI and you just pass m or margin equals 20 pixels, and that's all you need to do. Uh, and it makes it like way easier to write. If you would like to add a max width to your box, you can just pass max w or max width to the component and mx or margin x or margin left and right to that component to literally style it. So the key thing or the key idea behind this concept is to make it like super easy to style your components by just using these shorthand notations, which mostly are inspired by Tailwind CSS. Right. So to demonstrate Chakra UI, because there's quite a lot of components we have. To demonstrate Chakra UI, I have a website here open at intercom.com. So I will just like to show everyone the power of Chakra UI. So I'll try to, I mean, create something pretty close to this. So it's just like a pretty simple website. I might ignore all the fanciness and just try to go straight to the point and explain the core concept in Chakra UI, right? But one of the key things to take away from this conversation is Chakra UI makes it like really fast to style components. Chakra UI focuses a lot on accessibility, so things that has to do with making sure that your components are accessible, from color to contrast to font size, to keyboard navigation and the correct attributes based on the Y area standards or the accessibility standards. We try to incorporate them into every single component, right? So I have this page I'm going to try to work on now, just to demo the power of Chakra UI to everyone. Uh, so I have my code sandbox here, right, open right here. So I would create a new sandbox. There's a template for Chakra UI on Code Sandbox. So if you just search for Chakra UI, there's JavaScript or TypeScript if you like TypeScript support for your component. But right now, to make it like really easy, I'll pick JavaScript template. Okay. So So once you install JavaScript templates, what you will see right away is the app structure is literally set up for you. So you can literally start writing your code and just like move with speed, right? So I'll explain the key components right here. So we have the theme provider, which is literally what provides the theme And what the theme means is sort of like tokens, component tokens for the different parts of your app. Right, so I'll try to show you an example of a component token. So in this theme aspect of our code, of our documentation site, you can see that we have, this is what the theme looks like. So it has colors as a property and we register different colors. So this is just a way to maintain consistent design across your entire site. So you don't have to add code any specific color code while you're writing your code, but you can just refer to this theme uh, by pointing to the keys, right? So, and then we also have things like font sizes. So you can see the different fonts, heading, body, mono. You can see the different font sizes. You can see the different font weights. So this makes it really easy. So if I'm referring to a specific font size and I say SM, so that automatically means that I'm referring to 14 pixels in my code. But I don't have to put 14 pixels in my code. I can just use SM as an alias for 14 pixel. So this general idea or concept is called component tokens or theme tokens, which literally helps you speed up your development. All right. So the goal of this theme provider is to provide those tokens globally. It uses React context under the hood to provide these values or these tokens to all components. All right. And then we have the CSS reset component, which is literally to provide browser reset styles to all the components and sort of just level out all the components and make us style them the way we want, as opposed to having any browser styles. Okay. So to proceed, I would just try and restructure this up a little bit. I would I'll move this theme provider and CSS reset over here to React DOM.render, and I'll just close out the theme provider here, and I'll just get rid of this. Okay, so I'm going to start writing the entire website here, and try to break it down like as we go. All right, so I would create a directory here for the different parts, for example. So I'll just create a component directory and just keep it there. For example, I'll come to the site here now that I want to work on, and I just try to label the different parts of the site, right? So this top part here, I can just call it the banner section. So I can create in my components, I can just create a new file called banner.js or JSX and just try to write the code for that. So this is how you're going to learn a lot about Chakra UI. All right, so I know that this banner, there's this banner here and it's centered, we have this centered text within the banner and then a link to learn more. So I'll just try to create this component pretty quickly with Chakra UI. Okay, so I would import React from React. I think I read recently that you should use import all as React from React. So we just create here the banner component, and what we're going to have is Chakra UI has the concept of a box, which is a generic div component, but it gives you the power or the superpowers to style the component by just passing props to them. Right. So I'll create this box component here, and I'll give it a background color. So I will just say like the BG, which is the shortcut or the alias for background. So I will just say teal.500. So this is pointing to my team tokens. That means I have in my colors, in the colors property in my team, I have teal and I have a 500 color value. So that's what this means. Right. So I would just put in some demo content here from the site and just paste it right here and just export this component. And then I'll head over to my index and just get rid of all this and then drop in my banner. So I can call this box as main because this is meant to mark the main. The as prop here is used to change or swap out the underlying DOM element that gets rendered on screen. So this just means that it's going to be like a main tag in HTML that gets rendered to the DOM. Right, so I'm just going to import the banner component I just wrote and just put it on screen. And And there you go. We have the banner. So we're just going to try to style it a bit more, so you can I can demonstrate like more stuff or more things you can do with Chakra UI. All right. So I'll change the color to white from here, and I would wrap it in a different box as well, so I can contain the content here. And here I can set a maximum width for the content to for example, let's just say it's 800 pixels, or we can just reduce that a bit, and then set margin X or MX to auto, which is supposed to be a technique to center that element. Right. So from what I can see here, there's also some padding on the top and on the bottom. So I'll come to this element right here and apply a padding Y, which is the shortcut for padding on the top and on the bottom. And I have some tokens set up for this already. Right. So three maps to 12 pixels. So two maps to 8 pixels. So the mental model we try to keep in general is whatever value you put in there multiplied by 4 gives you the actual pixel value for that. Right. So you can check the documentation if you need to learn more. If you need to learn more about this. Okay, so and then right here we have this link here, which has like a very interesting interaction, which is we have a learn more link and we have an arrow icon. So I can, uh, for now, I can try to use React icons so that I don't have to think about the SVGs for this. So I would have this learn more link. So let's just try and create the learn more link as its own component. So we'll return. Now, based on the way this is, based on this interaction, I can render a link component in Chakra UI. Chakra UI has a link component, and then I can just put in the learn more. And just try and render this out here quickly. Let's just see what it looks like. Okay, so we can see that it sort of lines out on a new line here. So maybe it's related to this max width. So let's just get rid of the max width for now to be sure. And that's not the case. So we'll we'll just check this out and maybe turn this to a display inline block so that it lines out perfectly with that there. Okay, then I'll just try to style out this link a little bit. So one of the things I saw there is that the font weight is bold. So I just say font weight of bold, and that just makes it bold all of a sudden, right? And then I can add some space or some margin left to this. So I'll just say like margin left of 2, for example, to push it out, or 3, 4, to sort of see the different values and how it comes to play here. All right, so I'll just try and like fix this up really quickly. So we have this display inline block. I can get rid of the display inline block. And so there's a component we have in Chakra UI called a stack, which is used to stack two different elements together, right? So one of the key requirements for stack is that you have to forward all the props to the elements that you use within the stack. So I'll put stack here, and I'll say the direction of that stack is row. So it puts them on the same row. And then I can move all these specifications to the stack component. Oops. Yep, and then increase this max width here. All right, so we have at least we are making some progress on like with this component in general, right? So I'm also going to get rid of this margin left I put here because the stack has the ability to apply some consistent spacing between its elements. So I can just come and say spacing equals 2 or 3, and then the stack is just going to apply those spacing or that spacing between those elements. And then the link by default has an underlying interaction. So that takes care of this in general. Okay. So we've made some progress with this top banner right here. And then we come down here to this main section. So let's just try and see if we can write this component here, write this as a component in Chakra UI. So I'll come here and just add top section, the .gsx. Then as usual, I would import React from React, and I will just set up top section and just return a box again, just as a way to easily style these components. So I'll import box from Chakra UI, and I'll set the minimum height for this box so that it stretches out a little bit there. So I'll just set a minimum height. For example, I'll set that to 100 VH vertical height, so for the screen. And then I'll just export this component out, and so we can start seeing what it looks like. But before I import it, so let's just try and add this text right here, which is like huge. It's sort of like a heading for the entire site. So Chakra UI has a heading component. So you can just wrap your component in heading and put the content right there, and then change its size prop. You can pass a size prop to make it big, or change the size variant of that heading. So I can make it large or 2XL. Let's just try large quickly. And then I would try and just import this component right here and see what it looks like. So we'll see the top section. All right, so that's the top section right there. So we're going to try to just format it to look a lot better. So one of the things I would do is to make this a section, because that's what it's meant to be. It represents a section on the page. All right, and then I'll change this to 2XL. So you see that it gets like really big. All right. So these are the different tokens in Chakra UI that makes like work really fast. All right. So you can make this bold, obviously. So we can change its font weight to bold. All right. For some weird reason, this is not working out well. But let's just try semi bold and see if that works. Okay, so we'll just move on this then. All right, so I'm going to wrap all these components in a box here, and set a max width on this, so it doesn't exceed a certain width. So let's just say 500 pixels, and set everything there to be text align center, so that it stays aligned to the center, and
Mhm.
set a margin X of auto to sort of center align them. So this is really how easy it is to style out elements in Chakra UI. So I can change that max width. Yeah, so this is what we have. Now, one other thing I can do is, because I set this 100 VH min height. I mean, I might be interested in maybe like using a flex here and setting the direction to colon, but we can just hold off on that for now. All right, so we'll come down here to this component here, and we'll call that an H3, for example. So we're going to use the heading component again, Chakra UI, and just pasting that text right there. Okay, so what you can see right away is that now we have two headings, but to show some hierarchy on the page, we would use the as prop and change it to an H1, so that that is the proper tag. That should be the proper tag that should be used. All right, and we can make this an H2, for example. Okay, so we will try to reduce the size of this a little bit. So maybe we can take it down this way and just see if we can get it to match. So we can make this large. And then there's some space between them here. So I can just decide to give this a margin top. or I can just start using the shortcut aliases. MT means margin top. So I can just give it it's like a margin top there. And then, okay, so we're pretty much done with these two parts.
Mhm.
So I think this font weight didn't work because of the fact that MacBook changed the font size, the font for the system. I'm not sure, but we'll try to see how we can get this to work
Okay.
for now. All right, then so let's see what else we can do right here. So down here we have like an input and then a button on the right here. So Chakra UI has most of these primitives, and I'm just going to leverage them to create this section here. So we'll create an input field down here. So we'll just wrap everything in a box just to group them properly, and then put the input field from Chakra UI. And there you go, we have the input field. So it has a placeholder of your email address. So I just type placeholder equals your email address. And then there's a button beside it as well. So I can just like grab a button from Chakra UI as well. So get started button. So get started. Now, one of the things we notice is that these two buttons are flushed together. So we'll try to simulate that as well. So we'll try to flush those two buttons, the input and the button together. But one of the things I can do very quickly is to just change the color scheme of that button and change the look of the button or the visual style. So the Chakra UI has a prop called variant color that you can use to change that. So I can set that to teal, for example, to give it a teal color feel, right? So that's what I'm just going to use for the sake of this demonstration here. And that already comes with all the interaction styles. You don't have to think about any other thing. You just have to use the color teal, and you can change it to different variants. You have the red, you have the blue, depending on what the colors that are defined in theme. So these are not hard-coded decisions, but if you have a theme, these colors in your theme, uh, it's just going to pick from that automatically. So I changed the color to teal and just try to flush these two together by simply just using the flex component in Chakra UI.
Someone is asking why are you using as equal h1 and as equal h2? Is it related to the theme? That's the
Okay,
question.
so yeah, so the goal of this as prop is literally to change the rendered DOM element, right? So by default, the heading component renders an h2 to the browser. We carefully use an h2, not an h1, right? So, but if you need to dynamically swap out what gets rendered in the HTML, then you have to use the as prop. So what
Okay.
I mean by that is if you try to inspect elements right here pretty quickly, you can see that an H1 gets rendered in the browser for this text. Right. So that's the goal. That's the goal of the head of the has prop. You just literally use it to swap out the element that gets rendered at the end. And these are careful decisions for accessibility as well, because your page structure has to be correct from an SEO perspective. Right. So right here we just move on with this. So we have a flex. I've tried to flex this input and that button. So one of the things that looks off to me is the fact that this input has a blue border color. So I'm going to just try to change that to something that matches this brand teal that I'm working with so far. So Chakra UI has the concept of a focus, not here,
Input.
of a focus border color. So you can just change that to teal.500, for example. And now we have a matching style for the input and the button, so to say.
Nice.
So what I can do is to flush them, and obviously the easiest way to flush them is to use a property called rounded right, set that to 0. So rounded right means like the border radius on the left, on the right side mostly. So that means the top right and the bottom right border radius. That's what this shortcut alias helps to solve. Right, and I just do the same for the button as well. I just turn it like rounded left and then change that to 0, and then they're flushed like together
Mm-hmm.
correctly. Okay, so one other thing I can see right away is like this group or this group, this input group and button group, so to say, doesn't have the same max width as this heading right here. So I'll just try to reduce the max width for them by from this flex component. So I just use like the max width of 400 pixels and use MX auto, which is the same as margin X auto, right? So when we did that, you notice the button sort of gets squashed in. So that's, I mean, that's what we can literally do to fix that is to make sure the button has a specific minimum width. So we can just increase that width a little bit. That was too much. And just like make it 120, for example. So it sort of doesn't stretch or squash the button right there. Okay, so now we made some progress with that. I just need to maybe push it down a little bit so I can apply a margin top to this component and set it to 10, for example, to just push it down a bit. So just like I explained before, 10 sort of equates to 40 pixels. So that's just a way to push it down pretty quickly. You can also use it like a fixed value. So you can literally add code 40 pixels here as well. But the common practice we try to, the common principle we try to recommend is to use the tokens in your team to manage spacing across your site. Okay, so there we have the form right there, your email address and get started. We can try to make this bold as well. So even the buttons can be extended. So even if it looks like that, you can definitely come into it and pass in the font weight or bold. I hope this works this time. Okay, so we have the font weight bold, and it doesn't look the font size is a little bit smaller, so I can definitely also tone down the font size of this component. So even if we've made design decisions from the buttons perspective, you can literally like change all these different tokens after you render the button. So you literally just pass props to them to override most of these properties. Okay,
Somebody's
so
asking, does it support styling the components with style components?
Yeah, right now, Chakra UI uses emotion under the hood. So it's emotion styled is pretty similar to style components. They literally have the same API, right? So, but definitely if you want to use style components, I'm not sure it's going to work pretty well. So I recommend you use emotion styled. So you can search for the emotion style package. They have literally the same API that you can use, right? But the goal of Chakra UI is for you not to even focus on any of that at all, and just like literally just style your elements or your components as you use them, right? But if you definitely want to extend them, in this my starter package, I have emotion style installed, which is a peer dependency of Chakra UI. So you can just go ahead to use that as well if you want.
Okay.
Okay, so so we'll come down here to these checkboxes right here, and let's just see how quickly we can make these checkboxes uh, here. So let's just call this the benefits or the highlights, for example. So I'll come here and create a new component called highlights, and then just render some components. So let me just wrap this in the box for now. And then I have in the highlights, I have three key messages. So this is sort of a list item. So we have to also make sure that we are using the proper semantic HTML. So this is a list, right? And we have messenger, proactive messaging, and bots and more. So that's a list. So I'll most likely use a list component from Chakra UI, which helps you just render a list. So this renders an ordered list by default. So this is fine to use. Right, so I would render each list item like that. So I'll just grab messenger, I think, and then just like do this 3 times and just grab the text there, proactive messaging and button more. Yeah, so very quickly, let's just render this to see how it looks. So come down here and render that highlights. There you go. So it just renders the highlight step for us. So what we can do straight away is now we need to make them flush horizontally. So what I'll do is, let me see if I'll change the flex direction for these guys to a row, which is like one of the ways to do that. But what I always recommend is Chakra UI has a stack component that you can use, and then you can just like make that direction row. And obviously, because of those ugly looking bullet points, so you can just change the list style type to none, just to turn off those ugly looking bullets. Right, and then you can apply a spacing to between them. So if I apply, for example, a 40 pixel spacing, you can see what that is, right? So I'll just change this to 4 or 5, just to apply some decent spacing between those items, right? And maybe I can just get rid of this box all the same and just use a stack. And because this is rendering a div, and these are list items, which are actually li tags, li elements. I'll just make this a ul element just for proper semantics. Right. So the other thing I can do is just to pass any props from outside and just forward it into the component. All right, so I'll take this highlights. So highlights is rendered here. Now I need to, in the context of this layout, I need to tweak a couple of things, right? So let's see what we can tweak here. Now, one of the things I can do is to also like give it a maximum width. For example, let's just try 400 as well, and give it and do MX auto to sort of center it on screen as well. And we're pretty close to what we have here. So what we need to do is to just have some check icons. And Chakra UI has a very like quite a little icon set. We don't have as much or robust icon set, so we recommend React icons if you need a more robust icon set. So Chakra UI works really well with React icons. All right, so there's a component called list icon in Chakra UI. So I can literally just like put the list icon in there between each of them. This icon, let's just copy this and then just put that as well. So we have each list icon. Now I just need to specify the icon to use. So I think we have a check icon. Oh yeah, that's correct. Cool. So we have a check icon. So what I can do is to just reduce the font size in general. Like so, I can take down the font size a little bit for each item, right? And definitely wrap this up, for example, in a box. Right. So I wrap this in a box and maybe just make this display of inline block, for example. Let's see if that makes it flush. Okay, so we'll sort of leave it here, leave it right here for now, and rather than repeat this 4 times or 3 times, let's just see if we can improve this a little bit. So we'll just keep that list right here, const highlights, and then just keep like a simple array of this so that I can just look through them instead of having to copy and paste them. But more and proactive messaging. Okay. So next I'm going to just like delete all of this and just look through these items, so to say. So I just like highlight the map and grab each highlight and render that right here. Yep. And actually we shouldn't do this, but let's just use the index as a key, just to prevent warnings. And then for each highlight, I just render it there. All right, so immediately this feels like there's just some the icon doesn't have, or the text and the icon doesn't have enough room to play. So my instinct just tells me maybe I can come here and maybe like play with that, play with either the spacing here. Maybe I can reduce the spacing between them just to get them together, so to say, and just play around with different values to see what works. So spacing of 4 kind of works for us here. So what we're going to do is just maybe just push this down a little bit with margin top. So margin top of 6, and from the design, it looks pretty close to the input. So let's just say this works for now. There are definitely some extra things we can do to improve this, but this does a pretty good job. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is uh, sort of this vertical space up and down. We can maybe use a padding top and bottom, but I prefer to use a minimum height, and that is exactly what we've set from the onset here. Okay, so for this section, I'll just set the display to flex here, or literally just swap out this box component to a flex component, which is just a box with display flex actually. All right, so I set the direction to colon. All right, and then I can just like align item center, I think, or maybe it's justify content actually. Yeah. So we have justify. Since we are using a flex component comes with like a couple of shortcuts. So instead of typing justify content, you can just use justify center, and that will just literally center the component. And then I can just play with this my vertical height value and just reduce it a little bit, so just to keep everything flexible and not have to add code padding y value to the component. But that's definitely like an option in general. Okay, so we at least we've gotten this far. I'm just gonna maybe add one more section, and I hope that already gives you an idea in general of how easy it is to use Chakra UI. All right, so I can give this section a shot here. This section that has to do with testimonial, and then see how far we can go. So I would create a new section here. Just call it testimonial. Oops, no. No, I need file. Come on. Testimonial.jsx. And just import React. And then here we have the testimonial section. And we just export that out so we can use it. Okay, so here again, I would render a box component and set this to a section because it literally means a section that represents a section. Import box from Chakra UI. I think I'm missing something here. Okay, it's closing tag. All right, so let's just start this now. We have I always like to put all the content in a box in here. So I'm just gonna wrap all the content in a box. Give this a background of, for example, gray.100. So use a faint background here. Okay, and here we have like two contents that appear side by side. So we have a couple of options. Two layout components we have in Chakra is we have the grid component, which is just to lay things out in a grid. And you can also use the stack component, which is just going to stack them horizontally, and you can apply some spacing between them, right? But because I've used the stack component already, I'll just try out the grid component. All right, so I'm just going to put these two in a grid and just show you how it works in Chakra UI.
So grid use the CSS grid.
Yes, the CSS grid,
Mhm.
exactly. All right, so the grid component is literally just a div with display grid, and also like it gives us some shorthand props as well to just play with, to make it easy for you, because I know sometimes learning CSS grid can be a little cumbersome. So let's just play around with that. So I'll swap this box out to, uh, we have the grid component in Chakra UI. We also have which this simple grid component, which is a simpler version of the CSS grid. There's also the grid component if you know the technical terminologies in CSS grid, which is fine. But for someone like me who doesn't like to go to Mozilla Docs every time just to learn CSS, I just made this simple grid component. All right, so what we can do, what we know is that so we have this colons prop, which just takes a number to say that, okay, this is a 2-column grid. And I can just literally like copy this text right here, like so, and render this in a box, put the text there. And because this is a quote, I'm just going to render, I want the final HTML to be a block quote. Again, just to keep semantic HTML in general. So I'll render that as a block quote. So let's just render this on screen to see what it looks like. Okay, so we have the top section, then we put the testimonial section in place. Okay, so if you scroll down, we can see it down here. It looks pretty squashed. We're gonna fix that definitely. And let's see what we can do. So we close this out just to have some space. All right, so what we can do right away is to set a maximum width for this content so that it stays aligned. So we can just like use a maximum value and just set the margin X to auto, just a normal centering technique in general. And then we can apply a padding Y here or use a min height, but I just want to show a different technique anyway. So let's just use like padding Y of 100 pixels. So that gives the content like some breathing room in general. So let's just increase the font size. It looks so small. So I would boost up the font size a lot to 3XL, which makes it like super big. And we have values from small, large, medium, XL, 2XL, 3XL, 4XL. Again, these are just like theme tokens. So you can go to the theme object and add your own font size and just like alias or refer to that here. Right. So now that so I have the second colon here waiting for me to insert the image. Right. So I'll just grab the URL of this image. So just copy the image address and render the image component from Chakra UI. So let's just import that and then put the source to be equal to that. And let's see if it renders. Hopefully it does. I hope. I guess these images are kind of protected, I think. All right, so we got that to show up. Cool. All right, so that's the image right there. I think I can just try to make this blend in a lot with this background. So let's just quickly poke around and steal this background color and then see how we can add it to our code to make it really blend in. So just change this BG. So aside from using your theme tokens, you can actually specify color codes as well. So that just makes everything like easy in scenarios where you need to just break off the theme structure for a while and just use a custom color. So this is just a sample scenario for this. All right. So now we have the two components side by side here. Um, let's see what else we can do to improve this a little bit. Okay, so we can boost the font size a little bit here again. Maybe go to 4XL like that, and apply some spacing between each item, so it doesn't look all squashed together. So that would apply some space between them. I can increase these values just to add more space there. All right, and then this part is bold, so I can just like come right here and just wrap it in the B tag. This is normal HTML stuff here. Right, I'm not sure why bold is not working this time, but ideally it's meant to work. So that's like one thing we can do there. Let's see if we can wrap it in a box to make it work though. So wrap it in a box and we just make that a B tag and just increase the font weight. Bold maybe. This has something to do with fonts in general. Okay, so let's see. Let's just leave this out for now. I think I know how to fix this. So we'll just render this VP of marketing right here. And here we have the intercom, that's the quote. So it means that we'll just have to wrap all this content in a box as well so that I can render the other text. So I grab this, move this up like so, and then I would render this text. I can render it as a text, for example. Chakra UI has a text component. All right, there you go. So that's it. So now we've rendered the text component. We can just push down a little bit with 4, and then we have this small logo image. So we can copy the image address again, put an image below source, and just put the image source there. Okay, push that down a little bit as well. Just use 3 pixel, and it doesn't look as big on this website, so I can just set the specific height value for it. So if I use 3, I use 4, and I can use 6. Yeah, so this looks pretty much similar. So 6 means 24 pixels. Again, it's just 4 times whatever token you use. That's how the team scale was created. But definitely feel free to change the team object. You can check it out in the docs if you want to know how to do that. Okay, so very quickly we have at least we've created some the basic parts of Intercom's website. We can just try to open this up in a new tab so we can see everything, the entire thing we've done so far. So at least we have some working prototype. We can definitely improve this with some more eye for design and just make things smoother. But I really hope this gives like a full, not exactly a full idea, but it gives you some idea of the different parts of Chakra UI and what you can do with it.
Okay, nice. Um, do you have an example of accessibility and how how you allow easy keyboard interaction out of the box?
Okay, awesome. So let's just try and do that. So what I'm going to do is I just had a button here that triggers a modal. All right. So let's say this is just a login, a software you need to log in, and I just add a button somewhere down here just to show you an example of that. All right. So I would come up here to show one of the components that at least demonstrates accessibility. So I would just import the modal component down here, for example. So I'll just drop in a button component, and we'll just call that sign up, and change the variant color to teal just to keep the same theme. Push it down a little bit so it doesn't look off. Okay, so now the goal is when I click on this button, I want to see a modal show up for me to sign up on this platform. So Chakra UI has a couple of components. So let's just import the modal component, and there's a concept of the modal overlay. So we have pretty atomic components. We don't try to bundle the entire component into one. So you might see this quite often in all Chakra UI's components. And this is because we believe that you should have access to literally all the different parts of a modal, and you should be able to override or style them anyhow you want.
Nice.
So so we render the modal component, and we just put in the modal overlay, which represents the backdrop for the modal, and then we also put the modal content. So that's a little content box for the modal, right? There's also the concept of a modal header, which is to put some accessible heading to this modal component. So I'll just import modal header from Chakra UI. Yep. So I'll grab the modal header component and then just put in some content. So let's just call this like sign up now. Okay, did I get this wrong? Modal header, come on. Oh, modal. All right, so that's the modal header. So now we need to connect these two together. So clicking on this button should open up this model. So we have, you can definitely just use some React state to manage that, but we just have this little hook to just help us anytime we need to open and close anything. So we have this use disclosure hook. So I can just like grab and then call this use disclosure custom hook, which gives me access to like is open, a function to close, and a function to open anything. So I can just use that pretty much. So I can
Nice.
say model is open equals is open from the use disclosure hook, and on close equals on close. And when I click on this button, I'm just going to make a call to an open, which is the function to open the model. Okay, so just so it doesn't look off, I'm just gonna like put like a modal body, which serves as the main content area. So we can just like copy some random message from here and just put it there for now. So let's see how this looks in general. So come down here. Oops, it looks like way off, but at least when we click on it, you can see a modal shows up
Hmm.
with the content of that. And if you click outside, you see that focus returns back to the button that triggered the model. Right. So this is just like one of the key things to note. Right. But let's just try and improve this a little bit. So a common scenario would be to add some inputs to the model. So let's just say like input. I grab the input on Chakra UI and I just like put in some placeholder there. So let's call this username, and then let's grab another input for password. Okay. And then we put a placeholder, for example, a secure password. All right, so the button doesn't look so off. So let me just, for the button not to look too off, I'll just like quickly just put it in a box again and just grab these values. For example, this margin X right here. So at least it stays flushed with the rest of the content. All right, so I click on this and automatically the input, which is the first interactive element in the model, receives focus. Right. And focus is trapped within this model. You cannot go outside of this model because that's one of the core requirements for accessibility.
Nice.
Right. Since it's sort of like a model, you are trying to make users focus on this task before going back to the main site. And scrolling is also blocked, so you cannot scroll the page. Right. You have to finish from this model. But we definitely have prompts to opt out of this behavior. Well, we highly recommend not to do so, just to stay within the accessibility requirements, which should actually be the norm for all websites these days. So that's like one of the core components you can use in Chakra UI. So
Okay.
so this is an example of a modal. If let's just see how we can maybe, because I have like look, just seeing the model look like that makes me feel a little bad. So let me just like put things in place to just make it look like a lot nicer than it does currently. So I would wrap that in a box and connect it with the text. I can just add some padding bottom here of 6 and just see how this lines up. So see, it lines up pretty well. I can change out the spacing between each input item and just give it a bit more spacing just so that it's more relaxed. And then I can add a button to submit. So because everything is all within the stack, I'm sure that like it's going to apply a consistent spacing to each item. So let's just call this like register, for example, and then change the variant color again to teal. Yeah, there you go. So we have that, and then I can just dial down the spacing a bit if it looks like quite funky. So you can just like tone down that spacing and give the content a bit of a padding bottom as well, so it doesn't look all choked up in general. So that's it. If you, for example, if you would like to render a close button on this model, you can also like render. Chakra UI has another atomic component called the model close button. So pretty much every single part of the model has a component. So you just have to just import the components, and the way it's structured in general, anytime you click on the model component, or anytime you click on the close button, it's just meant to close. It's just going to close it out.
Do you have a way to add keyboard shortcuts to open the dialog, for example?
Yeah,
Or
so definitely, you can use space to trigger it since that's a button, and you can also press escape to close the modal. So these are common accessibility or keyboard requirements for modals in general. So you press escape to close, or you can tab all the way to the close button and just click it, and then you're good.
nice. Okay. Um,
Amazing. So that's I think that's a pretty cool introduction to Chakra UI. The goal again is just to make it like really easy to use. And for example, you don't have to figure out like how a model works. And we give you access to all the internals of a model, so you can literally just like style them anyhow you want.
okay, very nice. And somebody's asking, do you plan on supporting React Native?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I can't guarantee that, but I can say that some people are actually working on it already. I had a call with some contributors, I think about 2 months ago, who are trying to work on it, but I haven't heard back from them, so I'm not sure. I can't guarantee.
What do you think of the project React Native Web?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a cool project, and someone suggested it when the pull request was open for React Native. I don't have so much experience with it, so I mean I can't say a lot about it, but I know it's definitely something worth exploring, because I believe most of these primitives would work pretty well with React Native Web, and that sort of makes it compatible with both um, the web and mobile in general.
Okay. Let me see if anyone else has any questions. No, not, there are not any more questions.
Okay, okay, cool,
Let me check
amazing.
just in case.
Yeah, so in general, if you're looking to contribute to Chakra UI, feel free to check the project out on GitHub. So it's up on GitHub, Chakra UI's organization. So you can just check the site, the repo, I mean, and just like check out the projects that we have. We have a team working on the Vue.js for implementation of Chakra UI, which is also awesome. And I think should be coming out by the end of the month, which is pretty soon anyway. So just feel free to take a look. Feel free, if you run into any issues, feel free to reach out to us. We are the issues, and if you would like to contribute, we're definitely here to help.
Did you see this project about a UI builder for Chakra UI from a French guy?
Oh yes, yes. I mean, I've been in talks with Baptiste, which who created OpenChakra.app. I think it's pretty amazing, and from time to time I get to use it. I play around with it just to like just sometimes just make myself happy and excited. So like see how easy it is to like drop in any component and change the different parts of it. So it's like really it's a fantastic project, I would say.
Yeah, it's great. He came actually to the React Paris meetup. Um,
Yeah.
and okay, so uh, I guess that's it. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we leave?
Right now, no. I probably just want to thank all the people, everyone who have contributed to Chakra UI so far. Thank you so much for your support. Everyone who has donated to Chakra UI as well. I'm really grateful and I appreciate your support in general. So these kind of gestures just help us keep moving and sort of helps us like keep up the drive, even though sometimes we can feel like quite exhausted working on the project. But all these kind of things, people who share Chakra UI on Twitter, for example, they all sort of just give us the courage and the inspiration to keep moving. So I just like to say like a huge thank you to everyone.
Okay, well, thanks to you and everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as it helps us get more visibility and more content. And well, see you soon. We'll have the conference in a couple of weeks, so don't forget to tune in and see you soon.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay,
See
thank
you
you.
soon.
See you soon. Cheers.